So I want to talk a little bit about deficits and debt, because when I chaired this committee and I had hearings into what climate-driven extreme weather portends for insurance, mortgage, and real estate markets, my Republican friends came here constantly to say, oh, but the debt, oh, but the debt, oh, but the debt. But if you take a look at where things are going, in Trump's first term, they added $8 trillion to the debt. And the recent billionaires bill, this one right here, is north of $4 trillion, $5.5 trillion if made permanent. And the role of this committee in making things worse, not better, on the debt is part of the problem. The tax scam bill, as we refer to it on our side, that the Republicans put through for their rich friends in the first Trump administration was $2 trillion of that, and that had to come through this committee to get to reconciliation, to be able to push those rich people's tax cuts on a party line basis. This $4 trillion had to come through this committee to get to reconciliation, and if it's made permanent, then it's going to be another $1 trillion. So we cannot pretend that the Budget Committee is a great place for solving the debt problem right now. And so I will urge my colleagues to think about going back to the Whitehouse budget reform plan, and I'm going to start asking colleagues on both sides of the aisle to see if we can reboot that, because clearly this committee has a better role that it can achieve at reducing deficits and debt. The other point I want to talk about is energy costs. The Iran war is dramatically increasing Americans' energy costs. Gasoline costs in Rhode Island for regular have crested $4. For premium, they've crested $5. For diesel, they're nearly $6. That is a pure product of the decision to start this war with Iran. Move to electricity costs, which is a really important part of family budgets. Electricity costs are going up. And Mr. Vought, I will contend that they're going up thanks to Trump administration policies on purpose. And I'll explain to you why I say that. Because the Trump administration, like the Republican Party, like the front groups you've worked for in the past, is more or less entirely funded by the fossil fuel industry. So now it's payback time. And the way the payback is being done is to suppress clean energy on the grid. And what happens when you suppress inexpensive clean energy on the grid? I'll give you a little example. If you want to know that clean energy is inexpensive, just go to your grid operator and ask them what the generation stack looks like. And what they will tell you is that they deploy clean energy first because it's less expensive. Grids run less expensive power first, irrespective of how it's fueled. And they run clean energy first because it's less expensive. Then, on top of that, they've got fossil fuel energy. And what happens at any given level of demand, let's say this, if you have taken the clean energy out of the grid, now for that same level of demand, you're running way more fossil fuel energy. And what you've done is you've taken units at the top that wouldn't be running, units above my finger, let's say that's where the demand is, units above my finger that would not be running, now they run. They run because the clean energy isn't there. And when they run, they set the price for the grid. And when they set the price for the grid, they raise costs for consumers, because almost always the most expensive unit running is the one that sets the grid price. And that grid price goes to Americans' electric utility bills. So the whole grid cost goes up to the most expensive fossil fuel unit that is running. And those units are more expensive when inexpensive clean power is not on the grid. And what happens then is that it's like a big money pump. It extracts dollars from family budgets by the billions in higher electric utility costs, and it pumps those dollars to the fossil fuel industry, to your administrations, to Trump's big political donors. They make up all that added money that goes to the units that would not otherwise be running because they're too expensive to run, because this administration has suppressed clean energy. And if you want a specific Rhode Island example, let me give you this one. We operate in an 18-cent per kilowatt hour grid. The Trump administration tried to stop offshore wind projects that offered 9-cent per kilowatt hour power. In an 18-cent per kilowatt hour average grid, when you add a lot of 9-cent kilowatt hour power, you do not have to be much of a mathematician to know that that will bring down average costs. And yet the Trump administration stopped work on those projects, put union people out of work illegally. They've all been thrown out in court, all to drive costs up for consumers so that that added consumer expenditure went into the pockets of the natural gas industry that is the default when clean and inexpensive power is not available. Thank you.
So I don't recall this level of outrage when gasoline prices nationwide averaged $5 a gallon in June of 2022 because of the Democrat war on fossil fuels. I don't understand or don't hear the outrage of the incredibly high energy prices in California that probably hews closest to the type of policies they want to promote in terms of energy.
Well, let me remind you.
The good news
as long as you're going to debate with me, you might as well allow me to answer.
The good news is we're actually utilizing God-given energy resources here in America. We are energy independent. We are the largest producer now of fossil fuels for energy. If you want a good economy, you need power. The cheaper the power, the better. And green energy hasn't done it.
As long as you're going to interrupt and challenge what I have said, I at least deserve the courtesy to reply. And I will tell you that there was considerable outrage when fossil fuel prices soared in the past. And in fact, I wrote an excess profits clawback bill because the fossil fuel industry took the biggest profits in world history, taking advantage of the Ukraine war to raise prices on American consumers, even for $1 of gas that never went anywhere near Ukraine.
Listen, your Democratic policy has failed, but Senator Lujan.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News. Donate now, or even better, start a monthly contribution today.